The force had always been constant, an invisible current binding the galaxy together, flowing through every living thing like breath through lungs. Darth Vader had lived within that current for decades, drawing upon its power as naturally as lesser beings drew upon air. But now, for the first time since his transformation on Mustafar, the Dark Lord of the Sith felt something that chilled even his mechanized heart. Silence, not the silence of sound. His respirator still hissed its rhythmic cadence. His armor systems still hummed with imperial efficiency. This was something deeper, more primal. The Force itself had gone quiet, reduced to the faintest whisper where once it had roared like a solar wind. The hyperspace accident had come without warning. One moment, Vader's tie advanced, had been returning to the Executor after a successful interrogation of rebel sympathizers on Dilrakan Prime. The next, space itself had torn open before him. Not the familiar blue tunnel of hyperspace, but something else entirely. A wound in reality that pulsed with colors his optical sensors couldn't properly register. Geometries that defied the laws of physics he'd studied as a boy on Tatooine and mastered as a Jedi Knight. He tried to pull out of the anomaly, but his fighter's controls had frozen. The TIE Advanced, one of the most sophisticated starfighters in the Imperial Navy, had been pulled into that impossible vortex like a leaf into a storm drain. Vader had reached out with the Force, attempting to deflect whatever energies were tearing at his ship's hull, but the sensation had been like grasping at smoke. Then came the transition, a moment of absolute wrongness that seemed to last both an eternity and no time at all. Reality inverted. The stars disappeared. Vader's connection to the Force stretched thinner and thinner, like a rope pulled to its breaking point. And then it snapped. Not completely. Even now, he could sense the Force within himself, a guttering flame where once a bonfire had raged. But the galactic presence, the vast web of life and death and power that had surrounded him since the day Qui-Gon Jinn had discovered him, was simply gone. Vader's fighter tumbled through normal space now, systems failing across the board. His heads-up display flickered with damage reports. Hull integrity at 47%, main power coupling severed, ion engines offline, hyperdrive completely destroyed. The external sensors showed stars, but none he recognized. No familiar constellations, no imperial beacons, no trace of the galaxy he'd known. The respirator wheezed, and Vader felt a spike of pain in his ruined lungs. The environmental systems were failing. His suit's independent life support could sustain him for perhaps 6 hours before the backup reserves depleted. After that, he pushed the thought aside. Fear led to the dark side, but Vader had long since embraced that darkness. What he felt now was something different: calculation, assessment, strategy. The communication array was damaged but functional. Vader keyed the emergency Imperial distress frequency, knowing even as he did so that it was futile. Whatever had happened, he was far beyond the reach of the Empire, beyond the reach of his master. The thought sparked something unexpected, a moment of freedom quickly crushed beneath decades of conditioning and choice. He was Darth Vader, right hand of the Emperor, enforcer of Imperial law across 1,000 star systems. His purpose was singular, his path clear. But his path had just led him somewhere impossible. External sensors detected movement, something massive approaching from coordinates his navigation computer couldn't properly triangulate. The TIE's weapon systems were offline, his twin laser cannons useless, without power. Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber, the weapon that had never failed him, the crystal within singing with dark side energy even in this strange void. The massive object resolved on his sensors, and Vader's tactical mind struggled to process what he saw. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel in the Imperial Navy or the Rebel fleet. Organic curves instead of geometric precision, what appeared to be biological tissue instead of durasteel plating, colors that shifted and pulsed as though the craft itself were alive. It was alive. Vader could sense it now, a faint presence in the Force, dim and alien, but undeniably living. The ship was a creature, something that had never existed in his galaxy. The readings made no sense, Biosignatures where there should be reactor cores, neural networks instead of computer systems. What his sensors interpreted as a heartbeat echoing through the void. The living ship altered course, moving toward his dying fighter, with what seemed like curiosity. Or hunger. Vader's respirator hissed faster, compensating for the stress his body experienced even within the protective embrace of his armor. He reached out with the Force, feeling its weakened presence strain with the effort, and touched the consciousness of whatever approached. It recoiled, not from fear, but from confusion. The impression Vader received was of immense age and gentle curiosity, of intelligence that operated on principles entirely foreign to anything he'd encountered. This was no dumb beast. This was something ancient and aware. And it was not alone. The sensors picked up smaller life forms within the massive ship. Humanoid, mostly, though the readings suggested species diversity that would make even Mos Eisley Cantina look homogeneous. One signature in particular drew his attention, something that registered as human, but wrong somehow. Contaminated with energy readings his sensors couldn't classify. The living ship extended what appeared to be a docking tendril, reaching toward his crippled tie with surprising gentleness. Vader had perhaps 3 hours of life support remaining. He could attempt to fight whatever boarded his fighter, kill them with the Force and his lightsaber, and die alone in the cold void. Or he could allow this contact, learn what he could, and adapt. Darth Vader had not survived the Clone Wars, the Jedi Purge, and 2 decades of Imperial service by being inflexible. His gloved hand keyed the external airlock release. The game had changed. The galaxy had changed. But the Dark Lord of the Sith remained. And he would find his way home, no matter what stood in his path. If you want to see more epic crossover stories like this, hit that subscribe button and drop your dream crossover titles in the comments below. Which character would you want to see torn from their universe? Let us know, and may the Force, or whatever power binds your galaxy, be with you, ****. The docking tendril sealed against the TIE Advanced's emergency hatch with a wet, organic sound that set Vader's tactical instincts screaming. Through the Force, weak and attenuated as it was, he sensed movement beyond the hull. Multiple life forms, armed, cautious. They feared him without knowing why. Good. Fear was a weapon he knew how to wield. The hatch hissed open, and Vader's optical sensors adjusted to the strange amber light flooding into his cockpit. The atmosphere that rushed in was breathable. His suit's analyzers confirmed oxygen, nitrogen, trace elements, but it carried senses filters couldn't quite categorize. Ozone, something floral, the musk of living tissue. A voice crackled through the tendril's opening, speaking a language Vader had never heard. The cadence was humanoid, urgent, possibly aggressive. His suit's translation matrix, designed to handle the thousands of languages across the Empire, stuttered and failed. Whatever tongue this was, it existed outside the linguistic database of his entire galaxy. Vader rose from the pilot's seat, his cape settling around his armored form. The TIE's cramped cockpit had never been designed for extended occupation, and his towering frame had to duck to exit through the hatch. The respirator's rhythm remained steady, mechanical, inevitable as a death march. He emerged into a corridor that defied every principle of starship design he'd ever studied. The walls were ribbed and amber golden, pulsing with bioluminescence. The floor beneath his boots yielded slightly, like cartilage rather than deck plating. Veins of deeper color ran through the surfaces, and Vader realized with certainty that he was standing inside a living creature's body. 3 beings faced him, weapons raised. The first was female, humanoid, pale skin, dark hair pulled back in a severe style, wearing black leather that bore the marks of military precision. She held a weapon that resembled a pulse rifle, but with organic curves, the barrel aimed directly at Vader's chest. Her eyes were hard, professional, calculating. A soldier. Vader recognized the type instantly. The second was male, also human, but something about him set Vader's instincts on edge. He wore strange clothing, casual, colorful, utterly unmilitary, and his weapon looked cobbled together from mismatched parts. But it was his Force presence that drew Vader's attention. Not force-sensitive, exactly, but contaminated with something. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist, mathematical patterns that hurt to perceive even through his weakened connection. The third being was neither human nor any species Vader recognized. Blue skin, raised spots forming intricate patterns, a strong physique, and an expression of barely contained aggression. Its weapon was different from the others, bulkier, likely more powerful. The female spoke first, her voice sharp and commanding. Still that incomprehensible language. But Vader heard the universal tone of a combat officer issuing orders. Identify yourself, surrender your weapons, comply, or face consequences. Vader's respirator filled the silence after her words ceased. He reached up slowly, deliberately, and activated his suit's external speakers. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith and servant of Emperor Palpatine, Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Empire. His voice emerged in perfect basic, modulated and deep. You will lower your weapons and provide me with the location of the nearest Imperial outpost. The human male's expression shifted to something between confusion and dark humor. He spoke, and though Vader couldn't understand the words, the tone was clear. Mockery, disbelief, perhaps a touch of fear, trying to hide behind bravado. The female's weapon didn't waver. She spoke again, slower this time, enunciating clearly, trying to establish communication through repetition. Vader had neither time nor patience for this. His life support was failing, his ship was destroyed, and he was trapped in an impossible place with beings who couldn't understand the most basic truth of their situation. They were utterly beneath his power. He raised his hand. The Force answered his call weakly, like a muscle long atrophied, but it answered. The female's weapon tore from her grip and flew across the corridor, clattering against the organic wall. The male's cobbled rifle followed. The blue alien's weapon proved heavier, more resistant, but Vader's will was absolute. It jerked free, and all three weapons hung in the air between them, trembling with contained power. The female moved instantly, combat reflexes honed by years of training. She closed the distance with a warrior's precision, hands reaching for holds on Vader's armor that would allow her to control his balance and bring him down. Vader almost admired the technique. It would have worked against any normal opponent. His left hand caught her wrist in mid-strike. The servos in his prosthetic fingers were capable of crushing durasteel. He squeezed just enough to immobilize without breaking bone. Offensive action is unwise, Vader stated. The blue alien roared and charged. Vader thrust out his right hand, and the Force, weak, frustratingly weak, still managed to catch the warrior in mid-leap and slam him against the corridor wall. Not hard enough to kill, but sufficient to stun. The human male stood frozen, hands raised, eyes wide. And then he spoke a single word in a language Vader did understand, or rather, a word that seemed to transcend language entirely through its sheer universality. Whoa. Vader released the female and let the weapons clatter to the floor. The demonstration was complete. They understood now what they faced, even if they didn't understand who he was. The corridor suddenly resonated with a deep, sonorous sound that Vader felt through his boots. The ship itself, making noise, communicating. A voice emerged from speakers grown into the walls, feminine, artificial yet somehow warm. Pilot requests identifying. Pilot displays hostile capability. Moya expresses concern. Universal translation. Finally, something comprehensible. Vader turned toward the nearest speaker orifice. I am Lord Vader. Your vessel retrieved my fighter from space. I require repairs to my life support systems, navigation data, and transportation to the nearest Imperial system. The human male had recovered from his shock enough to laugh, a short, bitter sound. He spoke in that strange language, and the translation followed a moment later through Moya systems. Yeah, about that. Imperial systems aren't really a thing out here in the uncharted territories. And I'm pretty sure nothing called the Galactic Empire exists anywhere in this part of space. He paused, eyes narrowing. Where exactly are you from? The galaxy, Vader stated simply. Which galaxy? The female demanded, having recovered her weapon and retrained it on him. though Vader noted she kept her distance now. Peacekeeper star, charts, catalog thousands. Specify coordinates. Vader accessed his suit's navigation computer, pulling up the stellar cartography data from his destroyed TIE. He transmitted the coordinates, the last known position of the Executor, the location of Coruscant, the galactic core reference points every Imperial navigator used. The silence that followed spoke volumes. The male human consulted a device on his wrist, then looked up with an expression Vader couldn't quite interpret. Not fear, not exactly. Something closer to awe mixed with dread. Pilot, the translation system intoned. Your coordinates reference no known star systems in any catalog database. Your point of origin does not exist in this region of space. Impossible, Vader stated flatly. Yeah, well, join the club, the human male muttered. Impossible seems to be having a membership drive lately. He stepped forward cautiously, keeping his hands visible. My name is John Crichton. This is Aaron's son, he gestured to the female, and that's Dargo. The blue alien had regained his feet, glaring at Vader with undisguised hostility. We're fugitives running from an organization called the Peacekeepers. Moya here is a Leviathan, a living ship. And if your coordinates are as impossible as Pilot says, then you've got a much bigger problem than finding your empire. Explain, Vader commanded. Crichton's expression turned grim. You're not just lost, big guy. You're not even in the same universe anymore. The respirator's rhythm stuttered for just a moment. The only outward sign of Vader's internal reaction to impossible information that his tactical mind was already beginning to accept. He had faced Jedi Masters and Sith Lords. He had walked through battle zones that would break normal soldiers. He had been burned alive and rebuilt as more machine than man. Darth Vader would not be broken by mere cosmology. Then I will find a way back, he stated with absolute certainty. And you will assist me. It was not a request. The chamber they led him to was larger than the corridor, a multi-leveled space that seemed to serve as the living ship's center of operations. Consoles grew from the walls like technological fungi, their displays showing information in scripts and symbols Vader didn't recognize. The amber bioluminescence was brighter here, supplemented by overhead lights that reminded him vaguely of the luminous algae tanks on Mon Calamari ships, though those had been technological, not organic. Vader's life support systems registered 3 hours and 17 minutes of remaining power. The warning indicators on his chest plate pulsed red, visible even through the black armor. He'd survived worse odds, but never while cut off from the Force's full strength. Crichton noticed the display. Those lights look not good. You running on backup power or something? My armor sustains my life, Vader explained curtly. The transition through the dimensional anomaly damaged my primary systems. I require repair facilities. Aaron's son had positioned herself near a weapons locker, hand never straying far from her pulse pistol. Her military bearing reminded Vader of the clone officers he'd commanded during the Clone Wars. Professional, competent, utterly pragmatic. Moya is a transport vessel, not a military ship. We have no facilities for repairing armor of your complexity. Then you will provide me access to your engineering systems and raw materials. I will perform the repairs myself. Vader had rebuilt his entire suit twice in the field during the Emperor's campaigns. This universe's inferior technology would pose no obstacle. Dargo, the blue Luxon warrior, as the translation system had identified his species, growled something that translated as, "We should space him. He attacked us. He's dangerous." He also just demonstrated abilities we've never seen before, Crichton countered, though his eyes remained wary as they studied Vader. That trick with the guns? That wasn't Sebastian mental training or Scaran heat powers. That was something else entirely. The Force, Vader stated. The term meant nothing to them. He could see it in their blank expressions. In this universe, apparently, the fundamental truth of his existence was unknown. An energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. Your galaxy, maybe, Crichton said. Out here, we've got Delvian unity, Nibari mental cleansing, a dozen different psychic species, but nothing that sounds like your Force. This confirmed Vader's growing suspicion. The Force existed here. He could still feel it within himself, still draw upon its power, though with difficulty. But it wasn't the omnipresent cosmic field he'd known. It was isolated, contained within his own being, disconnected from any greater source. Like a fire burning without oxygen. Eventually, it would consume itself. A new voice interrupted his thoughts, this one emanating from a console near the chamber center. The speaker was hidden from view, but the translation system rendered its words in careful, precise tones. Forgive the intrusion, Lord Vader. I am Pilot. I serve as Moya's liaison and navigator. Your situation is unprecedented in our experience. Vader turned toward the console. You are the ship's biological interface. I am symbiotically bonded to Moya, yes. Together, we navigate, communicate, and survive. Pilot paused, and Vader could hear what might have been multiple appendages working across unseen controls. I have been analyzing the energy signatures from your destroyed craft and your person. The readings are extraordinary. Your technology operates on principles inconsistent with known physics. Show me your star charts, Vader commanded. A holographic display materialized above the central console, not the crisp blue projections of Imperial holoprojectors, but a shimmering amber construct that seemed to be generated by bioluminescent organs within Moya's structure. Stars appeared, thousands of them, connected by navigation routes and marked with symbols indicating planets, stations, territorial boundaries. Vader studied the chart with a tactical eye that had won battles across the Clone Wars. The galactic structure was wrong. The spiral arms were different. The core region was positioned incorrectly. Even the stellar density patterns didn't match any region of space he'd ever encountered. This is not my galaxy, he confirmed aloud, the words carrying a weight he rarely allowed others to hear. No, Frel, Crichton muttered, then seemed to catch himself. Sorry, but yeah, that's the problem. I'm in the same boat, or ship. I'm from a planet called Earth, got pulled across the universe through a wormhole, been trying to find my way home ever since. His expression softened slightly, common cause creating momentary empathy. How'd you end up here? An anomaly in hyperspace, Vader explained, calculating how much information to share. My fighter was pulled into a dimensional rift. When I emerged, I was here, in this place. Aaron's eyes narrowed. Hyperspace. Is that similar to Hetch drive technology? I am unfamiliar with Hetch drives. Faster than light travel, Pilot interjected helpfully. Moya uses starburst capability for emergency faster-than-light transit, though it is enormously taxing on her systems. Standard faster-than-light travel requires Hetch drives, which create a subspace corridor. Irrelevant, Vader cut him off. Can your vessel's drives return me to my point of origin? The silence that followed was answer enough. Your point of origin doesn't exist in this universe, Crichton said quietly. If you came through a dimensional rift like I think you did, and trust me, I know more about wormholes and space-time physics than anyone has a right to, then you're dealing with a barrier between entire realities. Different universes, different physical laws, different everything. Then I will find another rift. Return through the breach. Vader's tone allowed no room for doubt. That's not how it works. Crichton's frustration leaked through. You can't just reverse engineer a dimensional crossing. The math alone is, he stopped, running a hand through his hair. Look, I've been working on wormhole equations for years. The energy requirements for creating a stable, traversable wormhole are astronomical. For punching through to another universe entirely, you need something like a massive gravitational singularity, exotic matter, and a theoretical understanding of quantum mechanics that I'm not sure even exists in this reality. Vader's respirator filled the chamber with its rhythmic breathing. 3 hours and 9 minutes of life support remaining. Every moment wasted was a moment closer to death. You possess knowledge of wormhole physics, Vader observed, his tactical mind seizing on the relevant data. You arrived here through such a phenomenon. Therefore, you understand the principles involved. Understanding and being able to replicate are two very different things, Crichton protested. I didn't create the wormhole that brought me here. I fell into it. And the knowledge I have, He trailed off, eyes distant. It's contaminated me. There are things in my head that shouldn't be there. Ancient knowledge, equations, technologies I can barely comprehend. Vader sensed the truth beneath the words through his weakened force connection. This human had been touched by something beyond normal comprehension, some technology or entity that had imprinted knowledge directly into his neural pathways. The force contamination Vader had sensed earlier wasn't spiritual in nature. It was informational, mathematical, dimensional. Then you will share this knowledge with me. It doesn't work like that. Crichton snapped. These aren't blueprints I can hand over. They're locked in my brain, coming out in dreams and calculations I don't fully understand. And even if I could explain them, you'd need resources we don't have, technology we can't build. Erin stepped forward, her soldier's pragmatism cutting through the theoretical debate. Enough philosophy. Your life support is failing. Unless we find you a power source or repair facilities, you'll be dead in hours. We can debate universal transportation later. Vader appreciated her directness. What facilities are available? Pilot's voice returned, apologetic. Moya is a transport and explorer vessel. We have basic medical facilities, some engineering capabilities, but nothing designed for technologies like yours. The nearest commerce station is Corlac Gamma, approximately 3 Arns distant at standard cruise. 3 hours, Crichton translated, noting Vader's lack of recognition at the time unit. That's cutting it pretty close to your deadline. Then we proceed to this station immediately. Vader turned to face the others directly, his towering form dominating the chamber. You are fugitives. I require repairs and information. We share a common need for resources and stealth. A temporary alliance serves both interests. Dargo's growl translated as barely controlled anger. Alliance? You attacked us the moment we rescued you. A demonstration of capability, Vader corrected. Had I intended to kill you, you would be dead. I required you to understand the nature of power you face. Now you do. Now we negotiate. Erin studied him with a warrior's assessment. What do you offer in exchange for repairs and assistance? Protection, Vader stated simply. You mentioned pursuers, peacekeepers. I am the Empire's premier enforcer, trained in combat by the greatest warriors my galaxy has produced. Your enemies will not threaten you while I stand between them and their objectives. Awful confident for a guy whose life support is measured in hours, Crichton observed. Vader's respirator hissed. Confidence is irrelevant. I state facts. You require protection from superior forces. I require resources and information. The arrangement is mutually beneficial. Crichton and Erin exchanged glances, the wordless communication of partners who'd survived too many impossible situations together. Finally, Erin nodded slightly. 3 Arns to Corlac Gamma, she said. We'll get you what you need for repairs. In exchange, if peacekeepers show up, you help us fight them off or escape. After that, we reassess. Acceptable, Vader agreed. Pilot, Erin called out. Set course for Corlac Gamma. Standard cruise speed. Initiating course change, Pilot responded. Through the chamber's forward viewport, a transparent membrane that was part of Moya's living structure. The stars began to shift as the Leviathan altered trajectory. Vader felt the ship move beneath him, a sensation entirely unlike the mechanical precision of Imperial Star destroyers. Moya moved like a creature swimming through an alien ocean, organic and deliberate. 3 hours to the station. 3 hours and 6 minutes of life support remaining. The margins were acceptable. And once his immediate survival was assured, Vader would focus on the larger problem. Somewhere in this strange universe was the technology or knowledge that could tear open reality itself. John Crichton possessed fragments of that knowledge, locked in his contaminated mind. The Dark Lord of the Sith would find a way home, no matter the cost. Corlac Gamma Station hung in the void like a mechanical tumor, asymmetrical and sprawling, constructed from the salvaged corpses of 100 different ships. Vader observed it through Moya's viewport membrane as the Leviathan approached, his tactical mind automatically cataloging defensive positions, structural weaknesses, and escape vectors. The station's design philosophy was pure chaos. No unified architecture, no central planning, just sections bolted together as needs and resources dictated. It reminded him of the criminal stations that festered in the Outer Rim territories. Places where imperial law held no sway and credits spoke louder than loyalty. Korlak Gamma is neutral territory, Aaron explained as Moya maneuvered toward a docking berth. Run by a consortium of traders, salvagers, and information brokers. Peacekeepers don't have jurisdiction here, but their spies are everywhere. We'll need to move quickly. Vader's chest plate display showed 1 hour and 43 minutes of remaining life support. The journey had consumed more power than his suit's damage systems could efficiently manage. He'd spent the transit time in a form of meditation, slowing his biological processes to conserve oxygen and power. It was a technique he perfected during the dark days after Mustafar, when his new prison of flesh and metal had threatened to fail entirely. The Force remained frustratingly weak. He could sense life forms aboard the station, thousands of them, a cacophony of alien minds. But without the galactic web of Force energy he'd known, each use of power drained him more than it should. Like drawing water from a well that wouldn't refill. Pilots arranged for a discreet berth, Crichton said, checking his makeshift weapon. We've got a contact on the station, Maros, a Tablex scrap dealer. He owes us for that thing on Voltec Prime. Should be able to get you power cells, raw materials, maybe even a fabrication unit. Currency. Vader inquired. Crichton grinned without humor. We're a little short on local credits. Thought maybe you'd have something valuable to trade. Vader considered the destroyed TIE Advanced, still docked in Moya's docking web. My fighter contains Imperial technology. Weapon systems, shielding generators, sensor arrays. All are centuries beyond anything I've observed in this universe. That'll work, Crichton confirmed. Advanced tech is worth its weight in. Well, whatever passes for gold out here. Moya shuddered slightly as she connected to the station's docking collar. Another organic sensation that Vader's instincts struggled to categorize as normal ship operations. The translation system crackled. Docking complete. Pilot reminds crew to exercise caution. This station's reputation is colorful. Dargo secured a Qualta blade to his back, a weapon that appeared to be part sword, part rifle. I don't trust this. The moment we're off Moya, we're exposed. And he, the Luxon jabbed a finger toward Vader, attracts attention like a plague beacon. It was a fair tactical assessment. Vader's appearance was designed to intimidate, the black armor, flowing cape, masked helmet that concealed his ravaged features. In the Empire, that intimidation served a purpose. Here, it simply made him conspicuous. Disguising my armor is impossible given time constraints, Vader stated. We proceed openly. Those who interfere will be dealt with. Erin's expression suggested she found this approach less than ideal, but she didn't argue. Stay close. Follow our lead. And try not to force choke anyone unless absolutely necessary. We're trying to avoid incidents. The docking ramp extended, and Vader followed the crew into Korlak Gamma Station. The smell hit him first, even through his armor's filters. Ozone, burning metal, exotic fuels, organic decay, and a dozen other scents his processors couldn't classify. The station's atmosphere was technically breathable, but thick with particulates and chemical traces that would slowly poison unprotected lungs. The corridor beyond Moya's berth was crowded with beings of species Vader had never encountered. A six-limbed merchant haggled with a crystalline entity that communicated through resonant frequencies. A group of warriors in environmental suits marched past, weapons openly displayed. A small creature, barely knee-height to Vader, scuttled between stalls selling everything from foodstuffs to what appeared to be body parts. Every being they passed stopped and stared at Vader. Conversations halted. Transactions paused. The Dark Lord's presence created a ripple of silence through the chaotic marketplace. So much for subtle, Crichton muttered. They navigated deeper into the station, following Erin's lead through increasingly narrow passages. The architecture shifted from commercial to industrial, salvage yards, repair bays, fabrication facilities. The beings here were different, grease-stained, cybernetically enhanced, dangerous in the practical way of those who worked with deadly machinery daily. Merrow's shop occupied a corner section where 3 different structural segments had been welded together with visible C marks. The entrance was a heavy blast door marked with symbols in multiple languages, all conveying the same message: protected by armed response. Aaron knocked, a specific pattern that was clearly a code. The blast door iris opened, revealing a being that Vader's sensors struggled to classify. Roughly humanoid, but covered in what appeared to be chitinous armor, with multiple eyes arranged in a semicircle across its face and manipulator appendages that suggested both precision and strength. Aaron's son. The creature's translation came through as rough but cordial. Crichton. Dargo. The multiple eyes swiveled to Vader, and the being froze. What in the name of commercial sanity have you brought to my establishment? Client. Aaron said simply. He needs power cells, fabrication access, and discretion. We're trading advanced technology. Merrow's eyes remained fixed on Vader. That armor. I've never seen alloys like that. The design philosophy is completely foreign. And the way he moves. The dealer's voice dropped. That's military hardware. Combat grade. Who is he? Lord Vader. Vader introduced himself. His voice modulated to carry authority without aggression. I represent interests from beyond your territorial boundaries. I require immediate repairs to my life support systems. I offer technology in exchange. 1 hour and 19 minutes remaining. Merrow seemed to wrestle with competing instincts. Fear versus greed. Greed won. Show me the technology. Crichton activated a holographic display from his wrist device, projecting schematics of the TIE advanced systems that Pilot had scanned. The dealer's eyes widened as the information scrolled past, power coupling efficiency ratings that exceeded anything in this universe, weapon systems that could punch through military-grade shielding, sensor arrays capable of tracking targets across solar systems. Hesmana, Merrow breathed. These energy efficiency ratios, if these readings are accurate, your power systems are operating at 93% conversion. Our best military drives barely reach 70%. The technology is genuine, Vader confirmed, as are the weapon systems, defensive arrays, and navigational computers. All are available for salvage and study. In exchange, I require immediate life support repairs. The dealer's manipulator appendages twitched. Excitement, Vader assessed. The entire fighter? Everything except the pilot compartment records, Vader stated. Those contained Imperial intelligence data, tactical information about the rebellion, and communications that could compromise the Emperor's operations. Not that it mattered in this universe, but operational security was habit. Deal, Merrow said quickly, before Vader could reconsider. Bring me to the fighter. I'll assess its systems, provide you with compatible power cells, and grant access to my primary fabrication unit. If the technology is as valuable as these readings suggest, you'll have full access to my repair facilities. Vader's respirator hissed approval. The transaction was proceeding efficiently. They returned to Moya's docking berth, Merrow's practically vibrating with anticipation. The dealer circled the damaged TIE, advanced, like a scavenger, examining a fresh corpse, scanning, measuring, cataloging every detail. Magnificent, Merrow whispered. The hull composition alone is worth a fortune. And these ion engines. The dealer looked up at Vader. I could retire on this salvage. Never work another cycle. Then we have an accord, Vader stated. The fighter is yours. Now, fulfill your end of a transaction. Merrow moved with surprising speed for a being of such bulk, issuing rapid commands to assistant droids that scuttled from hidden compartments. Within minutes, power cells were brought forth, cylindrical units that looked nothing like Imperial technology but radiated compatible energy signatures. These are high-density plasma cells, Merrow explained, military-grade, restricted sale, worth more than this station's annual income. They'll interface with your armor's power systems through standard adapter protocols. Vader examined the cells, his suit sensors analyzing their composition and output ratings. The technology was crude by Imperial standards, perhaps equivalent to early Clone Wars-era equipment, but functional. The energy density was sufficient. "I require privacy for the installation," Vader stated. Meros gestured to a sealed repair bay adjacent to the main shop. "Use Chamber 3. It's shielded and private. No sensors, no recordings. Dealer's honor." Vader entered the chamber, Crichton following before Aaron could stop him. "I should observe," the human explained at Vader's questioning posture. "In case something goes wrong. You die in there, we lose our end of the bargain." A pragmatic justification that barely concealed curiosity. Vader allowed it. The man's wormhole knowledge might prove useful. Maintaining his cooperation served strategic purposes. The repair bay was sparse, a work table, basic tools, a medical-grade atmospheric containment field. Vader approached the table and began the delicate process of accessing his armor's power systems. 47 minutes of life support remaining. His gloved hands moved with practiced precision, removing access panels and exposing the complex circuitry that kept his ruined body alive. Warning indicators flashed across his chest plate as primary systems prepared to transfer to auxiliary power during the cell replacement. Crichton watched in fascinated horror as Vader's true nature became apparent, not just a warrior in armor, but a being who existed only through technological intervention. The exposed sections revealed cybernetic connections, medical monitoring systems, life support regulators that controlled every breath. "Jesus," Crichton whispered, "you're not wearing that armor. That armor is you." "The armor sustains me," Vader confirmed, removing the depleted power cell. His biological systems immediately screamed protest. Pain receptors firing as oxygen flow decreased, temperature regulation failing. 100 small agonies that his suit normally suppressed. "I was burned, broken, reconstructed as this." He inserted the first alien power cell into the primary coupling, and his suit systems hesitated. Foreign technology, unknown parameters, risk assessment protocols, screaming warnings. Then the connection stabilized. Power flowed. Life support systems engaged with renewed strength. Vader's respirator cycled deeply as oxygen pressure normalized and pain suppressors resumed function. 1 cell installed. 2 more required for redundancy. "That accident," Crichton said quietly. "However you got here, it might have killed you instantly if your armor had failed completely during the transition." "I am aware," Vader replied, installing the second power cell. "I have survived worse. I'm starting to believe that." The third cell clicked into place, and Vader's suit ran diagnostic checks. All systems green. Power reserves at 97% and climbing. Life support stable. He would survive. Vader replaced the access panels and turned to face Crichton fully. "You possess knowledge of wormholes, of dimensional physics. This is not merely theoretical understanding. You carry practical information encoded in your neural pathways." Crichton's expression hardened. The Ancients, a race that mapped the universe's hidden passages and then disappeared. They dumped their knowledge into my brain when I fell through that first wormhole. I didn't ask for it. Can't control when it surfaces. And others have tried to extract it. It never ends well. "I do not require extraction," Vader stated. "I require cooperation. You will help me find a way home. In exchange, I will ensure your survival against whatever enemies pursue you. And if I refuse..." Vader's respirator filled the silence. "Then I will find another method. The knowledge exists within you. It can be accessed through the Force, through technology, through persuasion or duress. I would prefer cooperation, but I will accept any method that yields results." The threat was clear, but Crichton didn't flinch. He'd faced worse than threats. Vader could sense it through the Force. This man had been tortured, hunted, pushed to breaking points, and survived. Simple intimidation wouldn't work. "Here's the thing, Vader," Crichton said, meeting the masked gaze directly. "I actually sympathize with wanting to get home. I've spent years trying to find Earth. But the wormhole knowledge in my head? It's dangerous. Weaponizable. In the wrong hands, it could destroy galaxies. So before I help you tear open reality to get back to your empire, I need to know something. Ask, what kind of man are you? What does your empire stand for? Because if I'm going to help create a bridge between universes, I need to know I'm not unleashing something worse than the Peacekeepers or the Scarans on an unsuspecting galaxy. Vader considered the question with more care than he would have shown most beings. This human was perceptive, dangerous in his own way, and potentially crucial to Vader's return. I serve order, Vader stated. My empire brings stability to chaos, law to lawlessness, unity to fragmented systems. I enforce that order through strength, through fear when necessary. I am the Emperor's weapon, wielded against those who would return the galaxy to the anarchy of the Republic's final days. Order through fear, Crichton repeated. And the people who disagree? The rebels? What happens to them? They are given opportunity to serve. Those who refuse are eliminated. Crichton nodded slowly, something sad in his expression. Yeah, that's what I was afraid you'd say. Before Vader could respond, alarms shrieked through the station's public address system. Merrow's voice crackled over local comm channels. Peacekeeper marauders have docked at berths 12 and 17. Multiple squads deploying. All personnel initiate lockdown protocols. Aaron's voice cut through on Crichton's comm device. John, we've got company. At least 20 peacekeepers, maybe more. They're searching berths systematically. Looking for us? Crichton demanded. Unknown. But we need to move. Now. Vader strode toward the repair bay exit, cape billowing behind him. His life support was restored. His power reserves were full. And he had made a bargain. The Peacekeepers were about to learn what happened when they stood between Darth Vader and his objectives. The Peacekeeper pulse rifles were primitive by Imperial standards, but Vader's tactical assessment recognized their lethality. Through the Force, still weak, still limited, he sensed the soldiers advancing through Korlak Gamma's corridors with military precision. 23 hostiles. Combat trained. Hunting. Aaron met them at Merrow's blast door, her face set in grim lines Vader recognized from countless clone officers during the war. They're doing a sector-by-sector sweep. Someone tipped them off that Moya docked here. Merrow's. Dargo growled, his Qualta blade already in hand. No, Aaron said with certainty. The dealer profits from discretion. More likely automated surveillance flagged Moya's biosignature. Peacekeepers maintain watch lists for fugitive vessels. Crichton checked his weapon's charge. How long before they reach this section? 5 micros. Maybe less. Vader moved past them toward the corridor, his restored power systems humming with renewed strength. I will handle this. Wait, Crichton started, but Vader was already through the blast door. The station's industrial corridor stretched 50 meters before branching into 3 directions. Poor tactical design, multiple approach vectors with insufficient cover positions. The Imperial Navy would never have tolerated such architectural weakness. Vader positioned himself at the corridor center, cape settling around his armored form like folded wings. His hand moved to his lightsaber, fingers curling around the familiar weapon. He could sense the Peacekeepers approaching from the left branch. 12 soldiers in formation, weapons ready, trained professionals executing a search pattern with competent efficiency. They rounded the corner and stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. The Peacekeepers stared at the towering black figure standing motionless in their path. Vader stared back through crimson-tinted optical sensors, cataloging their armor, light, mobility-focused, weak points at joints, their weapons energy-based, approximately 2-second recharge cycle between shots, and their psychological state confused, uncertain, but disciplined enough not to break formation. The squad leader, distinguished by subtle rank insignia on his shoulder plate, raised his pulse rifle. Identify yourself. You are in violation of Peacekeeper search protocols. Stand down and submit to questioning. Vader's respirator answered with its mechanical breathing. The squad leader's finger moved toward his trigger. Vader ignited his lightsaber. The crimson blade snapped into existence with a sound these soldiers had never heard. That distinctive snap hiss that had preceded death for Jedi and set the like across 1,000 battlefields. The blade's glow reflected off the corridor's metal walls, painting everything in blood-colored light. The Peacekeepers opened fire. Vader's blade moved in arcs that seemed almost lazy, the economy of motion perfected through decades of combat. Each pulse blast that should have burned through his armor met the lightsaber's plasma blade instead, deflected with contemptuous ease. The soldiers' confusion was palpable through the Force. Their weapons should work. Energy against armor should penetrate. But this impossible blade caught their shots like solid matter intercepting solid matter. Vader began walking forward. The Peacekeepers maintained fire discipline, adjusting aim points, trying for joints and gaps in the armor. Professional soldiers adapting to an unexpected threat. It wouldn't save them. Vader raised his left hand, and the Force answered his call. It was still weaker than it should be, still drawing from the finite well within himself rather than the infinite cosmic current. But against unshielded minds it was sufficient. 3 soldiers lifted off the ground, clutching at their throats as invisible pressure closed around their windpipes. The classic Force choke, Vader's signature, his warning to enemies across the galaxy. In this universe, it was simply inexplicable horror. Ceasefire. Defensive formation, the squad leader shouted, his voice tight with controlled fear. The remaining soldiers fell back, attempting to establish a firing line with overlapping fields of fire. Vader released the choking victims, letting them drop gasping to the deck, and extended his hand palm out. The Force surged, and the entire Peacekeeper squad was hurled backward in a telekinetic wave. Bodies slammed into walls with bone-breaking force. Weapons clattered to the deck. The squad leader struggled to his feet, reaching for a grenade on his belt. Vader gestured, and the grenade tore free, sailing into Vader's outstretched hand. He crushed it, his prosthetic fingers crumpling the device like paper before it could arm. "Your resistance is futile," Vader stated, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Withdraw, or I will demonstrate the full extent of my capabilities." The squad leader looked at his broken squad, at the impossible weapon still humming in Vader's hand, at the bodies of his soldiers scattered like discarded toys. Military pragmatism warred with duty in his expression. Duty won. He raised his pulse rifle. Vader's lightsaber took his hand off at the wrist before the trigger could be pulled. The cauterized stump produced no blood. The superheated plasma blade had sealed the wound instantly. The soldier screamed and collapsed. "I offered mercy," Vader observed. "You declined." Boots echoed from the right corridor, the second Peacekeeper squad, responding to the combat sounds. 11 more soldiers, weapons ready, already firing as they rounded the corner. Vader's blade became a blur of crimson light, deflecting the concentrated fire. But even weakened, the Force provided what technology could not: precognition, the ability to sense attacks before they manifested, to position his defense where the shots would be rather than where they were. One pulse blast slipped through his guard, impacting his chest plate. The armor held, designed to withstand blaster fire from weapons far more powerful than these primitive pulse rifles. Vader didn't even acknowledge the hit. He advanced into their firing line like a walking nightmare. His lightsaber cut through a pulse rifle, then through the soldier, holding it. Another soldier tried to close to melee range with a combat knife, brave but futile. Vader caught him with the Force and threw him into 2 of his comrades. The 3 went down in a tangle of limbs and armor. A grenade detonated near Vader's position. Someone had managed to arm and throw before he could intercept. The explosion was substantial, enough to shred unarmored flesh. Vader's armor absorbed the blast, servos compensating for the kinetic impact. He emerged from the smoke unscathed. "Weapons ineffective," one Peacekeeper shouted into his comm. "Target is resistant to pulse fire and explosives. Requesting heavy armor support." Vader's tactical mind processed the implications. Heavy armor meant delay, repositioning more soldiers. More time wasted on these insects when he should be focused on finding a way home. Time to end this demonstration. Vader reached deep into the Force, deeper than was wise given its limited presence in this universe, and seized every Peacekeeper in both squads simultaneously. 23 soldiers lifted into the air, held by invisible power that their minds couldn't comprehend. Their weapons fell from nerveless fingers. Several screamed. "You pursue fugitives," Vader stated, his voice carrying to every elevated soldier. "The ones aboard the Leviathan vessel. You will cease this pursuit. You will report that your search of this sector yielded nothing. You will forget you encountered me." He could feel their minds, simpler than Force sensitives, but still conscious, still aware. In his own galaxy, he could have dominated their thoughts with ease, rewritten their memories, bent their will to his purposes. Here, with the Force so diminished, he could only plant suggestions, seeds of doubt and fear that would grow into compliance. "If you continue this hunt," Vader continued, "I will find you. All of you. And what I have shown you today will seem merciful by comparison." He released them. The soldiers crashed to the deck, gasping, disoriented. Several vomited, a common reaction to Force manipulation among the weak-willed. The squad leaders struggled to their feet, looking at Vader with expressions caught between terror and awe. "Go," Vader commanded. They went, scrambling over each other in their haste to retreat, abandoning wounded comrades, discipline shattered by an enemy they had no framework to understand. Vader deactivated his lightsaber and returned to Marrow's shop. The crew stood in the blast door opening, staring at him. Crichton's expression was unreadable. Erin's was pure professional assessment. She'd just watched a single combatant dismantle 2 veteran squads without sustaining injury. Dargo-S warrior instincts warred with self-preservation on his face. "They'll be back," Erin said quietly, "with more soldiers, better weapons. Then we depart before they reorganize," Vader stated. "I have fulfilled my part of our agreement. The threat has been neutralized." Neutralized. Crichton's voice was tight. "You just terrorized 24 soldiers. That's not neutralizing. That's creating an incident that'll have every peacekeeper in the sector hunting us." "They were already hunting you," Vader countered. "I simply demonstrated why that hunt should cease." Maros emerged from a side chamber, his multiple eyes wide. "Lord Vader. I've never seen anything like that. The weapon. The power. What are you?" "I am what I told you. Now, our transaction is complete. You have the fighter. I have my repairs. We are finished here." The dealer nodded rapidly. "Yes. Finished. You should go. Quickly. Before command class peacekeepers arrive. They won't be as easily discouraged." Vader turned to the crew. "Return to your vessel. Prepare for immediate departure." As they hurried back toward Moya's berth, Crichton fell into step beside Vader. "That thing you did, choking people without touching them, throwing them around like ragdolls. That's your Force power." "A fraction of it," Vader confirmed. "And in your galaxy, where this Force is everywhere, you're even more powerful there." "Yes." Crichton was silent for a moment. Then, "I'm starting to understand why you're so confident about getting home, and why I'm really hoping we can find you a way back to your universe before you decide to conquer ours." Vader's respirator hissed. The human was perceptive and correct. This universe was beneath him. Its technology was primitive. Its warriors were weak. Its power structures were fragmented and vulnerable. But it was not his universe, not his empire, not his emperor, and Darth Vader would serve no other master. Moya fled Korlak Gamma at full thrust, her organic engines straining as pilot pushed the Leviathan beyond recommended cruise speeds. Vader stood in the observation chamber, watching the station shrink to a point of light against the star field. His armor sensors detected no pursuit. The peacekeepers were regrouping, probably requesting reinforcements, debating whether to chase a vessel protected by something they couldn't understand. "Pilot reports were clear of the station's sensor range," Erin announced, entering the chamber. She'd removed her outer tactical vest, though the pulse pistol remained holstered at her hip. "No ships following. Your demonstration bought us time." "As intended," Vader replied. She studied him for a long moment, her soldier's instincts clearly weighing threats and capabilities. "I've fought Scarans who could generate heat intense enough to melt duralloy. I've seen Delvian Paiyu, Zodo, Jean share unity with others, linking minds across distances. I've encountered beings with abilities that seem impossible. But what you did back there? She trailed off. That was different. More controlled. More dangerous. The Force grants many abilities, Vader said. What you witnessed was restraint. Had I wished to kill all 23 soldiers, they would be dead. Why didn't you? The question was direct, pragmatic. Vader appreciated that. Dead peacekeepers create martyrs and escalate response. Terrified peacekeepers spread fear. Fear is a more effective deterrent than corpses. Aaron nodded slowly. Scorpius uses similar philosophy. Break the mind, control through fear, make examples that others remember. Her expression hardened. I've seen where that leads. I've been part of that system. You speak of the Scorpius as though he were an enemy, Vader observed. He is. Half Sebastian, half Scarran. Genius-level intellect, completely amoral, obsessed with wormhole technology. She glanced toward where Crichton was working with Pilot at the navigation consoles. He wants what's in John's head. He's tortured, manipulated, and hunted us for cycles because he believes wormhole weapons could make him the most powerful being in the galaxy. Vader's interest sharpened. Wormhole weapons? Theoretical technology that could turn wormholes into planet killers. Open a vortex inside a sun, destabilize it, destroy entire solar systems. Scorpius believes the knowledge in Crichton's head could make it reality. And could it? Aaron's silence was answer enough. Vader processed this new intelligence. Scorpius represented both threat and opportunity. A being obsessed with wormhole technology would have resources, research facilities, potentially the means to create or locate dimensional rifts. But he was also a rival, someone who would view Vader's desire to access Crichton's knowledge as competition. Complications. Always complications. This Scorpius, Vader said. Where is he now? Commanding a peacekeeper carrier, last we heard. The Zulbinian-class vessel, called Relentless. He has resources, soldiers, technologies we can barely counter. She met Vader's gaze directly. If you're thinking what I suspect you're thinking, using him to get access to wormhole research, understand that he's not someone you can intimidate or bargain with easily. He survived assassination attempts, coup attempts, and having half his body burned by scar and heat. Pain doesn't deter him. Threats don't sway him. Only results matter. Then he and I will understand each other, Vader stated. Before Aaron could respond, Crichton's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm. Vader, you should see this. Pilots found something in the stellar cartography data that you'll want to know about. Vader found Crichton and Dargo in the navigation chamber, holographic star charts filling the space with amber light. Pilot's voice emanated from the console. Lord Vader, while analyzing your fighter's navigation logs, I discovered energy signature patterns in your dimensional rift data. They match, partially, certain astronomical phenomena we've encountered. Explain, Vader commanded. The hologram shifted, showing a swirling vortex of distorted spacetime. This is a naturally occurring wormhole, charted approximately 40 cycles ago near the Tarsus Nebula. It appears randomly, remains stable for brief periods, then collapses. Sebastian scientists theorize it's a tunnel between distant points in normal space. How does this relate to my situation? Crichton stepped forward, his expression intense. The energy signatures, Vader. Pilot ran comparisons between the wormhole data and the readings from your rift transition. There are similarities, not exact matches, but close enough to suggest they're related phenomena. Your dimensional rift and natural wormholes might operate on similar principles. Vader's tactical mind seized on the implications. If wormholes can be artificially created or stabilized, then dimensional rifts might be as well. Theoretically, yes, Crichton confirmed. But here's the problem. Creating stable wormholes requires technology and knowledge we don't have. The ancients, the race that put the wormhole equations in my head, they figured out. But their technology is gone, and I can't access the knowledge reliably. It comes in fragments, dreams, equations I don't fully understand. There are methods to extract such knowledge, Vader said quietly. Crichton's expression darkened. Yeah, Scorpius tried that. Stuck a neural chip in my brain. Nearly killed me. The knowledge is locked behind safeguards I don't even understand. Maybe put there by the ancients. Maybe my own subconscious trying to protect itself. Force it out, and you'll probably just break my brain. Your brain is useless if the knowledge remains inaccessible, Vader countered. I require results, not excuses. And I'm telling you the reality. Crichton snapped. You want to get home? Fine. I sympathize. But the wormhole knowledge doesn't work like a database you can just download. It's integrated into my neural pathways in ways that even pilot scans can't fully map. You try to rip it out with your force powers, you'll probably turn me into a vegetable. Dargo growled, hand moving toward his Qualta blade. Crichton is crew. Moya's crew. You threaten him. You threaten all of us. Vader turned his masked gaze on the Luxon warrior. Your loyalty is admirable. Your threat assessment is poor. I have demonstrated my capabilities. You have witnessed what I can do with the Force diminished. Believe me when I say that attempting to defend Crichton through combat would be suicide. Then we're at an impasse, Dargo stated. Because we won't simply hand over one of our own to be dissected for your benefit. The tension in the chamber crystallized, combat mere seconds away. Erin's hand rested on her pulse pistol. Dargo's fingers curled around his blade's hilt. Crichton stood between them and Vader, weaponless but defiant. Vader calculated odds. He could kill all three, even with the Force weakened. Even aboard their own ship, he possessed the skill and power. But Moya required pilot to navigate. Killing the crew would leave him stranded aboard a living ship with no way to control or direct it. Strategically unsound. I do not require Crichton's death, Vader said, lowering the temperature slightly. I require access to the knowledge within him. There must be methods less destructive than neural extraction. There might be, Crichton admitted cautiously. The ancients hid their knowledge in specific ways. Sometimes it surfaces when I'm exposed to wormhole technology or related phenomena. Being near an actual wormhole triggers the equations, makes them accessible. He paused. If he could find a stable wormhole or create conditions that simulate one, maybe I could access the relevant knowledge voluntarily. The Tarsus Nebula wormhole, Vader stated, returning his attention to the star chart. How far? Pilot's voice answered. At Moya's current speeds, approximately 12 solar days. However, the wormhole's appearance is unpredictable. We could arrive to find it dormant. Unacceptable. What other options exist? Crichton and Pilot exchanged what might have been glances, difficult to tell with Pilot invisible within his den. Finally, Crichton spoke. There's one other possibility. A peacekeeper research facility called the Aurora Station. They've been studying wormhole phenomena for years, trying to understand how I survived my first trip through one. They might have equipment, data, maybe even partially stable wormholes and containment. And Scorpius will almost certainly be there, Erin added. It's one of his primary research installations. Vader considered this. Aurora Station represented risk, peacekeeper forces, advanced security, a hostile genius who wanted the same knowledge Vader sought. But it also represented opportunity. Research data, equipment that could trigger Crichton's ancient knowledge, potentially even technology for creating dimensional rifts. Set course for Aurora Station, Vader commanded. Wait, what? Crichton's eyes widened. I said it was a possibility, not a good idea. That place is fortified, crawling with peacekeepers, and definitely monitored by Scorpius. We'd be flying into a trap. Then we will spring the trap and turn it against our enemies, Vader stated. You require access to wormhole equipment to unlock your knowledge. Scorpius possesses such equipment. Therefore, we will take it from him. Dargo actually laughed, a harsh barking sound. You want to assault a peacekeeper research station? With 1 Leviathan transport and 4 people. I have assaulted rebel bases with less, Vader replied. And I was successful. Erin stepped forward, her tactical mind clearly engaging despite reservations. If, and this is a massive if, we were to attempt this insanity, we'd need intelligence. Station layout, security protocols, Scorpius's current location. We can't just fly in shooting. Agreed, Vader said. We require reconnaissance, information, a spy within their organization or access to their communication networks. Pilot's voice carried a note of hesitation. There is a possibility, a contact who might possess such information, though approaching her carries its own risks. Explain. Genevieve Chardo, pilot said, a former Peacekeeper Special Operations Officer, now operating as an independent intelligence broker. She trades in secrets, tactical data, and classified information. Her reputation is complicated. But if anyone has current intelligence on Aurora Station, it would be her. Crichton groaned. Genevieve? Really? She tried to sell us out to the Peacekeepers last time we dealt with her. She also provided accurate intelligence about the Gammak base, Aaron countered. For the right price, she delivers. We just have to make sure our price is better than whatever Scorpius might offer. Where is this broker located? Vader asked. Shadow Depot, pilot answered. A neutral territory station 3 solar days from our current position. Genevieve maintains an office there. Vader nodded decisively. Set course. We will acquire the necessary intelligence, plan our approach, and extract what we need from Aurora Station. And if the intelligence broker betrays us to Scorpius, Dargo demanded. Vader's respirator filled the silence with its mechanical rhythm. Then Scorpius will learn, as the Peacekeepers at Korlak Gamma learned, that I am not easily stopped. The crew exchanged glances, silent communication passing between beings who'd survived impossible odds together. Finally, Aaron spoke. 3 solar days to Shadow Depot. That gives us time to plan, prepare, and hopefully figure out how to keep this from becoming a suicide mission. Pilot, Crichton said wearily. Set course for Shadow Depot. Course laid in, pilot confirmed. Engaging normal cruise speeds. May I suggest that all crew members utilize this travel time to rest? The coming days will likely be challenging. Vader watched the star field shift as Moya altered course. Somewhere ahead lay information, technology, and potentially the first real step toward returning home. And if Scorpius stood in his way, the half-Scaran would learn what happened when lesser beings challenged a Dark Lord of the Sith. Shadow Depot was smaller than Korlak Gamma, but far more organized, a testament to whoever controlled its operational security. The station orbited a dying red giant, its hull plating painted with heat-resistant alloys that shimmered like oil on water. Vader observed it through Moya's viewport as the Leviathan approached the docking perimeter. Genevieve operates from the upper commercial ring, Aaron explained, reviewing tactical data on a handheld display. High security, discreet clientele, probably monitored by at least 3 different intelligence agencies. We go in clean, no obvious weapons, no threats, straight business transaction. Vader's lightsaber hung at his belt, unconcealed. I do not disarm. Then you stay obvious, Crichton said. Look, Genevieve responds to power and credits. You want to intimidate her, fine, but she survived in the intelligence game by having contingencies. Threaten her. She triggers fail-safes that dump her entire database to the Peacekeepers. We need her cooperative, not terrified. Fear and cooperation are not mutually exclusive, Vader observed. In this case, they might be, Aaron countered. Let me and Crichton handle the negotiation. You can be the silent, ominous backup plan. Vader considered this. The strategy had merit. Allow the crew's established contacts to conduct the transaction, while his presence served as unspoken leverage. He inclined his head fractionally. Acceptable. But if this broker attempts betrayal, I will handle the consequences. Moya docked without incident. The station's automated systems accepting their berth fees through pilots' financial accounts. The crew disembarked into corridors far cleaner than Korlak Gamma's chaotic passages. Polished metal, proper lighting, security checkpoints with armed guards who watched everyone with professional suspicion. The guards stared at Vader, but made no move to interfere. Perhaps his earlier demonstration had spread through station networks. Perhaps they simply recognized a threat beyond their capacity to engage. Either way, they stepped aside. Geneviane's office occupied a corner suite overlooking the station's central commerce hub. The entrance was unmarked save for a small holographic symbol that shifted languages every few seconds. Aaron pressed the door chime. A voice, female, modulated by privacy filters, responded. State your business. Information acquisition, Aaron said. We're paying customers with urgent needs. The door hissed open, revealing an interior that mixed luxury with paranoia. Plush furniture, expensive artwork, but also visible scanner nodes, reinforced walls, and what Vader's sensors identified as personal shield generators built into the ceiling. A woman sat behind a desk of polished black stone, her appearance carefully neutral. Average height, nondescript features, clothing designed to be forgettable. Then she looked up and saw Vader. Her composure cracked for just a moment, eyes widening, hand twitching toward a weapon before discipline reasserted itself. Aaron's son, John Crichton, and... She trailed off, studying Vader with the intensity of someone whose survival depended on accurate threat assessment. Someone new. Someone very new. Lord Vader. Vader introduced himself. We require intelligence regarding peacekeeper operations. Genevian's fingers moved across her desk's interface, pulling up data that Vader couldn't see, but could sense through minute electromagnetic emissions. I've heard reports from Corlac Gamma, a being in black armor who defeated 2 peacekeeper squads single-handedly using impossible weapons and abilities. That was you. It was. And now you're here in my office, requesting classified peacekeeper intelligence. She leaned back, expression calculating. This will be expensive. Crichton stepped forward. We need current operational data on Aurora Station. Security protocols, personnel rosters, Scorpius' schedule, anything that would help us understand what we're dealing with. Genevian's eyebrows rose. Aurora Station? You're planning to infiltrate one of the most secure peacekeeper research facilities in this sector. She looked at Vader. I suppose with him along, it's not completely suicidal. Just mostly suicidal. Can you provide the intelligence or not? Aaron demanded. I can, Genevian confirmed. Aurora Station data is premium-tier information. Current going rate is 50,000 peacekeeper credits or equivalent value in trade goods. Crichton winced. We don't have that kind of currency. Then we have nothing to discuss. Genevian began closing files on her display. Wait, Vader said, his voice cutting through the dismissal. He reached into a compartment on his belt and withdrew a small metallic cylinder, a data storage device from his TIE Advanced Backup Systems. This contains technical specifications for Imperial military technology, weapon systems, power generation, propulsion theory. Information worth considerably more than 50,000 local credits. Genevian's professional interest sparked. May I scan it? Vader placed the cylinder on her desk. She ran it through analysis equipment, her expression shifting from skepticism to genuine surprise as data scrolled across her screens. These power conversion ratios, these are real? She looked up at Vader. This technology is decades beyond anything in peacekeeper arsenals. Centuries beyond some of it. The Empire's technology is superior, Vader stated simply. A fraction of that knowledge is sufficient payment for your intelligence. Genevian studied the data for another long moment, then nodded decisively. Deal. Though I'm curious what someone with technology this advanced wants with Aurora Station. That is not your concern, Vader said. Fair enough. She transferred files to a portable data chip and slid it across the desk. Current Aurora Station intelligence, updated as of 2 solar days ago. Security rotations, personnel assignments, facility layout, known research projects. Scorpius is currently aboard, supervising something called Project Katratzi. No details available, but it involves wormhole containment technology. Crichton accepted the chip, plugging it into his wrist device to verify contents. His eyes widened as he scanned the data. This is comprehensive. How did you get access to internal peacekeeper networks? Genevian smiled thinly. I have my methods. And before you ask, yes, the information is legitimate. I don't stay in business by selling false intelligence. One more question, Vader said. This Project Katratzi, what is its purpose? Officially? studying wormhole stabilization for faster-than-light travel advancement. Genevian's expression suggested she didn't believe the official explanation. Unofficially, Scorpius wants to weaponize wormholes, turn them into planet killers. He's been obsessed with the concept since he learned about the ancient knowledge in Crichton's head. Vader processed this. A weapon capable of destroying planets, not unlike the Death Star, though utilizing different principles. If Scorpius possessed even partial technology for wormhole weaponization, that technology might also enable controlled dimensional rifts. How close is he to success? Vader asked. Genevian shrugged. Unknown. But he's dedicated significant resources to Aurora Station. That suggests he believes he's making progress. Vader turned to leave, the transaction complete. Then Genevian's voice stopped him. One warning, Lord Vader. Scorpius has a reputation for turning enemies into assets. He's brilliant at finding leverage, exploiting weaknesses, manipulating situations to his advantage. Whatever plan you have for Aurora Station, assume he's already anticipating it. Let him anticipate, Vader replied. It will not save him. Back aboard Moya, the crew gathered in the observation chamber to review Genevian's intelligence. Holographic displays showed Aurora Station's layout, a massive orbital platform bristling with defensive weapons, fighter bays, and research modules. The facility housed approximately 300 peacekeepers, plus support staff and research personnel. Security is layered, Aaron analyzed, pointing to the schematic. Outer perimeter has automated defense platforms. Inner perimeter requires biometric authentication. The research laboratories are in the station's core, behind additional security checkpoints, and probably shielded against scanning. Frontal assault is impossible with our resources, Dargo observed. Even with Vader's abilities, we can't fight 300 trained soldiers. We don't fight them all at once, Vader said. We infiltrate, locate the wormhole research, extract what we need, and withdraw before they can organize effective resistance. Crichton shook his head. Infiltration requires getting past biometric scanners keyed to peacekeeper personnel. None of US are going to pass those scans. I can, Aaron said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I was a peacekeeper. My biometric signature is still in their databases. They probably haven't purged it yet, assuming I'm either dead or too far away to be a threat. I could get through the outer checkpoints. And then, Dargo demanded, you walk into Scorpius's research facility alone. Not alone, Vader stated. Officer Sun gains us entry. I provide combat capability if resistance manifests. Crichton accompanies us to identify relevant wormhole technology and potentially trigger his ancient knowledge. Dargo remains with Moya as emergency extraction. If we signal, you retrieve us immediately. The Luxon warrior growled, but didn't argue. It was sound tactical planning. There's still the problem of getting to the research core, Crichton pointed out. Even if Aaron gets us inside, the laboratories will have their own security. Probably armed guards, sealed doors, the works. Sealed doors are not obstacles, Vader said, his hand moving to his lightsaber. And guards can be neutralized silently or otherwise. Aaron studied the station schematic, her tactical mind working through contingencies. Shift change occurs every 8 arns. During the overlap period, there's a 15-microt window where security is transitioning. That's our best insertion point. Confusion, personnel movement, reduced attention to internal monitoring. When is the next shift change? Vader asked. Pilot's voice answered from the ship speakers. According to the intelligence data, shift change occurs in approximately 18 arns. If you wish to exploit that window, we must depart soon. Vader nodded. Prepare the ship. We leave within the hour. As the crew dispersed to ready equipment and plan detailed approach vectors, Crichton pulled Vader aside. His expression was troubled, conflict written across features that had seen too much impossible danger. I need to know something, Crichton said quietly. Once we're in that station, once you have access to Scorpius's wormhole research, what happens if you find a way home? I return to my Emperor and continue serving the Empire, Vader stated. The answer was obvious. And this universe? The people here? We just become a footnote in your journey. Vader's respirator filled the silence between them. This is not my galaxy. These are not my people. My loyalty is to Emperor Palpatine and the order he has established. Nothing here changes that. Even if getting home means leaving behind technology that could be weaponized, even if Scorpius gets access to whatever dimensional rift you use. Crichton's voice was tight with controlled emotion. Your empire sounds totalitarian, brutal, built on fear and subjugation. But at least it's contained in your universe. You really want to risk creating a bridge between realities that someone like Scorpius could exploit. The question struck at calculations Vader had been avoiding. Opening a dimensional rift was not a precise science, especially without complete understanding of the forces involved. A passage large enough for him to return through might remain open, might allow travel in both directions, might give beings from this universe access to his galaxy, or worse, give the Empire access to this one. I will ensure the passage is controlled, Vader said finally. Can you guarantee that? Crichton pressed. Because I've learned the hard way that wormholes don't follow convenient rules. They have unexpected consequences. Create one to get home, and you might accidentally open your entire galaxy to invasion, or open this universe to imperial conquest. Vader turned away from Crichton, looking out at the stars through Moya's viewport. The human raised valid concerns, tactical complications that could jeopardize both his mission and the security of his emperor. But Darth Vader had not survived 2 decades of imperial service by allowing complications to prevent action. I will deal with consequences as they arise, Vader stated. First, I must find the means to return. Everything else is secondary. That's what I was afraid you'd say, Crichton muttered. 18 Arns until the operation commenced. 18 Arns to prepare for an assault on one of the most secure facilities in this sector of space. 18 Arns until Vader took his first real step toward home and potentially opened a door that could never be closed. The approach to Aurora Station was deceptively quiet. Moya drifted on minimal power, using the Red Giant's radiation to mask her biosignature, while Pilot calculated the insertion vector. Vader stood in the transport pod, a small auxiliary craft grown from Moya's own biological structure, watching the research facility grow larger through the viewport. Aurora Station was a fortress disguised as a laboratory. Weapons platforms studded its exterior like mechanical parasites, their targeting sensors sweeping space in overlapping patterns. Fighter bays showed active Prowler squadrons on standby. Energy shields shimmered across critical sections, powerful enough to deflect sustained assault. Shift change begins in 4 micros. Pilot's voice crackled through the pod's organic communication system. Window will open shortly. Aaron checked her pulse pistol one final time, then concealed it beneath the peacekeeper uniform she'd reluctantly donned. The black leather fit perfectly. Muscle memory from years of service, making her movements automatic, professional. But Vader could sense her discomfort through the Force, the psychological weight of wearing an identity she'd abandoned. Crichton sat across from them, unusually quiet. His cobbled weapon was hidden in an equipment pack designed to look like research materials. He'd been silent since their conversation about consequences, and Vader knew the human was still wrestling with moral calculations. 2 micros, Pilot announced. Initiating approach. The transport pod detached from Moya with a wet organic sound, small maneuvering jets propelling it toward Aurora Station's docking perimeter. This was the first critical moment. If station sensors detected anomalies in their approach or identified the pod as Leviathan-derived, automated defenses would open fire. The seconds stretched. Vader's hand rested on his lightsaber, ready but not ignited. Station communications crackled. Unidentified transport. Transmit authorization codes. Aaron activated the false credentials Genevian's intelligence had provided. Legitimate peacekeeper codes tied to a supply rotation. Her voice emerged crisp and military. Authorization code Zeta 79er Delta. Officer Aaron Sun transporting research materials to Project Katratzi. A pause. Vader could sense the station's security systems analyzing their transmission, comparing biometric data against personnel databases, searching for inconsistencies. Authorization confirmed. The response came. Proceed to docking bay 12. Security scan upon arrival. The pod glided into the station's embrace, magnetic clamps, seizing it and guiding it into a pressurized bay. Through the viewport, Vader saw peacekeeper guards assembling, for soldiers, weapons holstered but ready, scanning equipment active. Remember, Aaron muttered, I do the talking. You're contracted security for high-value research cargo. Keep the force tricks minimal unless absolutely necessary. The pod's hatch opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Aaron emerged first, moving with the confident stride of an officer who belonged here. Vader followed, his towering form immediately drawing stares from the guards. Officer Son, the lead guard said, checking his datapad. Your credentials are in order, but this one, he gestured toward Vader, isn't in our system. Explain. Contracted security, Aaron stated flatly. Authorization from command regarding sensitive cargo transport. The contractor's identity is classified under operational security protocols. The guard's expression suggested skepticism, but peacekeeper hierarchy was rigid. If a code said classified, questioning further was above his clearance level. We still need to scan him. Weapons check, biological verification, standard security protocol. Vader stepped forward before Aaron could object. The scanning equipment hummed as it passed over his armor, sensors struggling to interpret the mix of organic and mechanical components that comprised his existence. What in the name of Yench is this? One guard muttered, staring at the readouts. These readings don't make sense. He's showing as part biological, part machine, but the technology is completely unknown. Classified technology, Aaron said smoothly. If you have concerns, contact your superior officer. We'll wait. The threat was clear. Delay us and accept responsibility for interfering with classified operations. The guard hesitated, weighing career risk against security protocol and career 1. Proceed to Level 7, Section Theta, he said reluctantly. Project Katratzi Laboratories are in that sector. Your access codes will allow entry, but be aware that internal security may require additional verification. Understood, Aaron replied. They moved through Aurora Station's corridors, Vader cataloging every detail with tactical precision. Guard positions, security camera placements, emergency bulkheads, access points. The architecture was efficient, if uninspired, military functionality, without imperial grandeur. Crichton caught up to them at a junction, emerging from a service corridor where he'd bypassed security through maintenance access. I'm in. Sensors didn't flag my biometrics because I came through waste processing. You're welcome for that delightful experience. Status. Vader asked. Project Katratzi is 3 levels down, behind some serious security doors. And I'm picking up energy signatures that match wormhole phenomena, faint, but definitely there. They've got something active in those labs. Exactly what Vader needed to hear. Lead the way. They descended through restricted access lifts, each checkpoint passed with Aaron's credentials and Vader's intimidating presence. The few peacekeepers they encountered gave the black-armored figure wide berth, instinct warning them away from something dangerous. The final security door stood between them and the research laboratories. Reinforced durasteel, no, something similar, but not quite the same. The Force whispered of energy fields, biometric locks, possibly explosive failsafes. Aaron placed her hand on the scanner. This is where things get complicated. My clearance might not extend to active research areas. The scanner beeped negative, access denied. Before she could suggest alternatives, Vader ignited his lightsaber. The crimson blade thrummed to life, and he drove it into the door's locking mechanism. Metal screamed as plasma cut through security systems never designed to resist such weapons. Sparks erupted, alarms began wailing, and the door's emergency protocols failed catastrophically. Or we could do that, Crichton said weakly. The door slid open, revealing a laboratory that would have impressed even Imperial research divisions. Containment fields held shimmering vortexes of distorted space, miniature wormholes, stabilized through technology Vader couldn't immediately identify. Monitoring equipment surrounded each containment unit, displaying data in languages and mathematical notations that meant nothing to him. But Crichton stared at the wormholes with an expression caught between awe and terror. Oh God, they actually did it. They're creating stable wormholes in controlled environments. Can you access the research data? Vader demanded. Crichton moved to the nearest console, fingers flying across the interface. I can try, but he stopped, eyes widening as something on the screen triggered recognition. Wait, these equations. I've seen these before. In my head. The ancient knowledge, it's responding. Vader felt it through the Force, a shift in Crichton's neural patterns, synapses firing in cascading sequences as buried knowledge surfaced. The human's eyes unfocused slightly, seeing something beyond the physical laboratory. The wormholes aren't just spatial tunnels, Crichton whispered. They're dimensional weak points, places where the barriers between realities are thinnest. The ancients understood this. They mapped not just space, but the structure of reality itself. Can these wormholes create dimensional rifts? Vader pressed. With modifications, maybe. You'd need exotic matter to stabilize the dimensional barrier breach, massive energy input to force the opening, and precise calculations to target a specific alternate reality. Crichton's hands moved across the console, downloading data even as more ancient knowledge flooded his consciousness. But the principle is sound. If you can create a stable wormhole, you can theoretically punch through to parallel universes. Behind them, boots echoed in the corridor, peacekeeper reinforcements responding to the alarms. Vader turned toward the entrance, lightsaber ready. A new voice cut through the chaos, amplified and coldly amused. Impressive. You've penetrated further into Aurora Station than any unauthorized personnel in its operational history. Holographic emitters activated, projecting the image of a being who could only be Scorpius. Half-sebation features merged with scar and heat-radiating tissue, the fusion creating something neither fully one species nor the other. His eyes held the calculating intelligence Aaron had described, studying Vader with the intensity of a predator recognizing worthy prey. Lord Vader, Scorpius continued. News of your exploits at Corlac Gamma reach me. I've been hoping you'd come here eventually. After all, we share a common interest. You presume much, Vader stated. Do I? You seek dimensional travel technology to return to your origin universe. I seek wormhole weaponization. Both require the knowledge currently locked in John Crichton's mind. Scorpius's image smiled without warmth. I propose a partnership. Share Crichton's ancient knowledge with me, and I will provide you with the resources to create your dimensional rift. You return home. I obtain my weapons. Everyone achieves their objectives. Vader felt the tactical calculations shifting. Scorpius was offering exactly what he needed: technology, resources, expertise. But the price was sharing knowledge that could make this being catastrophically powerful. And if I refuse? Vader asked. Then the 60 peacekeepers currently surrounding the laboratory will attempt to kill you. They'll fail, of course. Your abilities make conventional assault problematic. But in the chaos, the containment fields might fail. The wormholes would destabilize. And in a cascading collapse of spatial geometry, this entire station would be consumed. Scorpius's expression didn't change. I am willing to die for my objectives, Lord Vader. Are you willing to sacrifice your only path home? The standoff crystallized. Vader could fight his way out, but destroying Aurora Station would eliminate the wormhole research he needed. He could accept Scorpius's partnership, but that meant empowering a dangerous intelligence with weapons-grade technology. Or he could find a third option. I require time to consider your proposal, Vader said. You have 30 micros before I order containment shutdown. Scorpius's hologram flickered. Choose wisely, Dark Lord. Your universe awaits. The projection vanished, leaving Vader facing the laboratory's sealed entrance, peacekeeper soldiers assembling beyond, and Crichton still downloading data with hands that trembled from ancient knowledge flooding his synapses. 30 micros to decide the fate of two universes. The Force whispered of danger, opportunity, and consequences that would echo across realities. Vader's hand tightened on his lightsaber. The game had just become significantly more complicated. 20 micros remaining. Vader's tactical mind processed variables with a cold precision that had won battles across the Clone Wars. Scorpius's offer was logical from a strategic standpoint. Cooperation would provide resources, expertise, and time. But it would also arm a dangerous intelligence with knowledge that could destabilize this entire region of space. The Emperor would never accept such risk. Control was absolute or it was nothing. "Crichton," Vader said quietly, "how much data have you extracted?" The human's fingers still danced across the console, eyes flickering with equations and concepts that weren't entirely his own. "Enough. Wormhole stabilization protocols, dimensional barrier mathematics, exotic matter generation theories. It's all here, locked in these files and in my head." He looked up, lucid for a moment. "But Vader, if we take this and run, Scorpius will hunt us. He'll never stop." "Then he will die hunting us," Vader stated. He turned to Aaron. "Can Moya reach this location for emergency extraction?" Aaron activated her comm, speaking rapidly to Pilot in clipped military shorthand. A pause, then, "Pilot says yes, but station defenses will engage the moment Moya approaches. She'll take damage." "Acceptable." Vader moved toward the laboratory's exterior wall, igniting his lightsaber. The crimson blade sank into reinforced metal, beginning to cut a circular opening. "We create our own exit. Signal Moya to position for retrieval on my mark." "That's your plan?" Crichton demanded. "Cut through the hull and jump into space? We don't have vacuum suits." "The Force will protect us long enough for extraction," Vader said, though he knew it was a calculated risk. His power remained diminished in this universe. Maintaining a force barrier for 3 people in hard vacuum would drain his reserves dangerously. But staying meant surrendering leverage to Scorpius. And Vader surrendered to no one. 15 micros. The lightsaber completed its cutting arc atmosphere, began screaming through the widening breach. Emergency bulkheads starting to seal the laboratory from adjacent sections. Scorpius's hologram reappeared. His expression shifted from calculated patience to cold anger. "Unwise, Lord Vader. I offered cooperation. Now I offer only consequences." The containment fields around the wormholes began fluctuating. Scorpius making good on his threat. The miniature vortexes expanded, spatial distortions rippling outward as their stability degraded. "Containment failure in 60 micros, automated systems warned. Evacuate immediately." Crichton grabbed the data chip from the console and stuffed it into his pack. If those wormholes collapse uncontrolled, the spatial backlash could tear a hole in normal space. "We need to go now." Vader reached out with the Force, seizing both Crichton and Aaron in an invisible grip. The hull section he'd cut fell away into space, and station atmosphere erupted outward in a violent decompression. Vader stepped into the void, pulling the others with him through sheer force of will. Space was silent, cold, and utterly hostile to organic life. Vader felt his suit systems compensate automatically. He was designed to survive vacuum. But Crichton and Aaron had perhaps 30 seconds before hypoxia and cellular damage became irreversible. Through the Force, Vader created a bubble of protection around them, a thin barrier that held atmosphere in and hard vacuum out. It was draining, pulling from his already limited reserves. But he maintained the construct through discipline and necessity. Moya appeared from behind Aurora Station's bulk, her organic hull taking fire from automated defense platforms. Pilot guided the Leviathan with desperate precision, bringing the transport pod bay into alignment. 10 seconds. The distance was 40 meters. Vader pushed with the Force, propelling them toward Moya like projectiles. Behind them, Aurora Station's research laboratory erupted in cascading spatial distortions as the wormholes collapsed. Reality warped, folded, screamed in protest against the uncontrolled energies. The transport pod bay opened. Vader, Crichton, and Aaron tumbled through the entrance, the Force barrier collapsing the moment they entered breathable atmosphere. All three gasped, Vader's respirator cycling rapidly to compensate for the exertion. "Seal the bay and get us out of here," Aaron shouted into her comm. Moya's engines, biological muscles contracting with power, drove the Leviathan away from Aurora Station at maximum thrust. Defense platforms tracked their escape, pulse weapons hammering against Moya's hull. The living ship shuddered with each impact, her distress transmitted through pilot's panic voice. "Hull integrity at 73%. Recommend immediate starburst." "Do it," Crichton commanded. The universe twisted. Starburst wasn't hyperspace, or any form of faster-than-light travel Vader recognized. It was Moya gathering every reserve of biological energy and releasing it in one desperate dimensional leap, a living creature's version of emergency escape. Space folded, reality blurred, and Aurora Station vanished behind them in a cascade of distorted light. When normal space reasserted itself, they were light years away, tumbling through an empty stellar region with only distant stars for company. Vader pulled himself to his feet, systems reporting moderate power drain from maintaining the force barrier. Survivable, but it had cost him. Crichton lay gasping on the deck, data chip clutched in white-knuckled fingers. That was insane. That was absolutely insane. "We just assaulted a peacekeeper research facility, stole classified data, and escaped through hard vacuum." He started laughing, the slightly hysterical edge of someone who'd survived impossible odds yet again. Aaron checked her pulse pistol, found it still functional despite the vacuum exposure, and holstered it with practiced efficiency. "Scorpius will dedicate every resource to hunting us now. We've escalated this beyond fugitive status. This is personal." "Let him come," Vader said, his respirator filling the transport bay with mechanical breathing. "I have what I need." He held out his hand toward Crichton. "The data chip. Give it to me." Crichton's laughter died. He looked at the chip, then at Vader, conflict written across his features. "This information, you understand what it represents, right? The ability to create wormholes, punch through dimensional barriers, maybe even build weapons that could destroy solar systems. You want to take this back to your empire." "I want to return home," Vader corrected. "What happens to this universe's knowledge afterward is irrelevant." "It's not irrelevant," Crichton snapped, standing despite his exhaustion. "You create a dimensional rift. There's no guarantee you can close it behind you. Your emperor could send ships through. Your empire could invade this universe. Or worse, beings from here could access your galaxy. You'd be creating a bridge between realities with consequences you can't predict." "The Emperor's strategic vision exceeds yours," Vader stated. "He will determine appropriate uses for dimensional technology." "The Emperor?" Aaron's voice cut like a blade. "The one you described as ruling through fear and absolute control? That Emperor? And you want to give him access to wormhole weapons and dimensional travel?" Vader turned his masked gaze on both of them. "My loyalty is to the Galactic Empire and Emperor Palpatine. That has not changed. It will never change. I will return home, report what I've encountered, and allow my master to decide how this knowledge serves Imperial interests." Dargo's voice crackled over the comm. "What's happening down there?" "Pilot says he's detecting elevated biosigns, stress, confrontation. Do I need to come down there?" "Not yet," Aaron replied, eyes never leaving Vader. Her hand rested on her pulse pistol, not drawn, but ready. "We're having a philosophical discussion about consequences." Crichton took a step back, putting distance between himself and Vader. "I can't give you this data. Not if it means potentially unleashing your empire on two universes. The ancient knowledge in my head is dangerous enough. I won't hand over the technical specifications that make it practical." Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber. "You will surrender the data chip, peacefully or otherwise." "Otherwise, then," Crichton said quietly, "because I've learned the hard way that some knowledge is too dangerous to share. The ancients understood that. It's why they locked their equations in my brain instead of writing them down. Some doors shouldn't be opened." The transport bay crystallized into combat readiness. Aaron's pistol cleared its holster. Vader's lightsaber ignited with its characteristic snap hiss. Crichton stood unarmed but defiant, the data chip held behind his back. "Final warning," Vader stated. "I do not wish to kill you, but I will if necessary. The data is mine." "No," Crichton said simply. "It's not." Vader reached out with the Force, attempting to simply rip the chip from Crichton's hand through telekinesis. But the human had anticipated this. He crushed the chip in his fist, shattering its delicate components into useless fragments. "The data was always secondary," Crichton said, letting the broken pieces fall. "The real knowledge is in my head, and you can't take that without destroying me." Fury surged through Vader, cold, controlled, absolute. He raised his hand, Force choking beginning to constrict around Crichton's throat. The human gasped, clutching at his neck, but didn't collapse. Aaron fired. The pulse blast struck Vader's chest plate, energy dissipating against armor designed to withstand blaster fire. He didn't even acknowledge it. "Stop." Dargo's voice roared as the Luxon warrior charged into the transport bay, Qualta blade raised. "Release him." Vader extended his other hand, catching Dargo with the Force and slamming him against the bulkhead. The Luxon dropped, stunned but alive. Aaron fired again, aiming for joints in the armor. Vader deflected the shots with his lightsaber, each movement economical and precise. "You cannot win this," Vader stated, Force choke tightening around Crichton's throat. "Surrender the knowledge, or watch your friend die." Crichton's face was turning purple, eyes bulging. He managed to choke out words, "Kill me, and you get nothing." Vader hesitated. The human was correct. Dead. His knowledge died with him. Vader could potentially extract memories through the Force, but that required time, equipment, and Force strength he might not possess in this diminished state. He needed Crichton alive, needed him cooperative, and killing him would make that cooperation impossible. Vader released the Force choke. Crichton collapsed, gasping for air. "This changes nothing," Vader said quietly, deactivating his lightsaber. "I will find a way home, with or without your willing assistance." He turned and walked from the transport bay, cape billowing behind him, leaving the crew to recover. Behind his mask, Darth Vader calculated new strategies. The data chip was destroyed, but Crichton's mind still held the ancient knowledge. Scorpius possessed wormhole research facilities, and somewhere in this universe existed the technology or phenomena to tear open dimensional barriers. Vader would find it, would exploit it, would return to his Emperor. And if being stood in his way, even these temporary allies, they would learn what happened when they defied a Dark Lord of the Sith. The game was far from over. The observation chamber had become Vader's sanctuary aboard Moya, a place where he could stand alone, watching alien stars and calculating paths home. 3 solar days had passed since Aurora Station. 3 days of cold silence between him and the crew. 3 days of Crichton avoiding him, Dargo watching him with open hostility, Aaron maintaining professional distance. Only Pilot spoke to him regularly, the symbiotic navigator's voice crackling through the chamber's organic speakers with updates on their position, fuel status, and sensor readings. "Lord Vader," Pilot said now, hesitant in a way that suggested difficult news. "I have detected unusual energy signatures ahead. They match patterns similar to your original dimensional rift. Spatial distortions, exotic radiation, temporal anomalies." Vader turned from the viewport. Location: 3 solar days at current speed. The phenomenon appears to be a naturally occurring dimensional weak point, what this universe's scientists term a reality fracture. It opens periodically, remains stable for brief intervals, then collapses. Can it be used for dimensional travel? Unknown. The energy signatures suggested bridges to somewhere beyond normal space. Whether that somewhere includes your origin universe. Pilot trailed off. "The mathematics are beyond my capability to calculate, but not beyond Crichton's." The ancient knowledge in his head could potentially determine if this fracture led home. Vader found the human in what passed for Moya's engineering section, working alongside Dargo to repair hull damage from their escape. Both stopped when Vader entered, tension immediate and palpable. "I require your assistance," Vader stated without preamble. "Not interested," Crichton replied, not looking up from his welding work. Pilot has detected a dimensional fracture. Your ancient knowledge could determine if it connects to my universe. That got Crichton's attention. He set down his tools, studying Vader with an expression caught between suspicion and weary curiosity. A natural fracture? Those are rare and dangerous. Most collapse catastrophically. Will you help me analyze it? Vader asked. It was as close to a request as he could force himself to make. Crichton exchanged glances with Dargo. The Luxon's expression was clear. Refuse. Deny the Dark Lord anything that might help him. But Crichton's face showed something different. Conflict. Understanding. Maybe even sympathy. If I help you, Crichton said slowly, and we determine this fracture can get you home, what happens then? You just leave? Disappear back to your empire and forget this universe exists? Yes, Vader stated simply. And the knowledge of how you got back? The dimensional travel principles? You report all that to your emperor. Vader's respirator filled the silence. He could lie, could promise to keep the knowledge secret. But deception served no purpose here. Crichton would see through it, and Vader's word, once given, was absolute. I report everything to my master, Vader confirmed. What he does with that information is his decision. Crichton nodded slowly, something sad in his eyes. That's what I thought you'd say. He picked up a datapad, pulling up the sensor readings Pilot had provided. His eyes scanned the data, and Vader saw the moment when ancient knowledge surfaced. Pupils dilating slightly, breathing pattern changing, awareness shifting to something beyond normal human cognition. This fracture, Crichton whispered. It's not just a dimensional weak point. It's a junction. Multiple realities converge here, like highways meeting at an interchange. The mathematics are beautiful. Terrible, but beautiful. Can it return me to my universe? Vader demanded. Maybe. The fracture touches dozens of alternate realities, possibly hundreds. Navigating it would require precise calculations, exact timing, and probably some luck. But theoretically, yes. If we can stabilize it long enough, identify the correct dimensional signature, you could go home. Hope, an emotion Vader had long suppressed, flickered briefly. He crushed it immediately. Hope was weakness. There was only the mission. What would stabilization require? Crichton's fingers moved across the datapad, equations scrolling past faster than any normal human could process. Massive energy input channeled through exotic matter to hold the fracture open. Something like a contained wormhole used as an anchor point. And we'd need to generate a dimensional signature beacon matching your home universe's unique quantum fingerprint. Aurora Station had contained wormholes, Vader observed. Had being the operative word. Scorpius's facility is probably still dealing with the spatial backlash from their collapse. Crichton paused, then looked up with an expression of dawning realization. Unless. Speak, Vader commanded. Scorpius isn't stupid. He's obsessive, brilliant, and he never puts all his resources in one location. If Aurora Station had wormhole containment technology, he probably has backup facilities. Other research installations with similar capabilities. Dargo growled. You're not suggesting we assault another peacekeeper base. I'm suggesting, Crichton said carefully, that if Vader wants to go home, and I suspect we all want him to go home at this point, he needs technology we don't have. Technology that only exists in places like Aurora Station. Or aboard Scorpius's command carrier. Erin's voice cut in. She'd entered silently, pulse pistol holstered, but her military bearing suggesting she'd been monitoring the conversation. The Relentless. Scorpius's personal flagship. It would have the most advanced research equipment, wormhole containment systems, everything needed for dimensional manipulation. Vader turned to face her. You propose assaulting a peacekeeper carrier? I propose, Erin said with the cold pragmatism of a career soldier, that you and Scorpius are going to clash eventually. He wants Crichton's knowledge. You want dimensional travel. Both goals lead to the same confrontation. Better to choose the time and place than let him dictate terms. That's insane, Dargo protested. A peacekeeper carrier has thousands of soldiers, fighter squadrons, weapons that could destroy Moya in micros. Then we don't fight the carrier directly, Vader stated, tactical possibilities crystallizing. We board it. Small strike team, surgical insertion, seize control of the wormhole research equipment. Use it to stabilize the dimensional fracture long enough for me to transit. And Scorpius? Crichton asked. Will be dealt with. Vader's tone left no room for doubt about what dealt with meant. The crew exchanged glances, silent communication between beings who'd survived countless impossible situations together. Finally, Aaron spoke for all of them. If we do this, and that's a massive if, we do it our way. Minimal casualties, tactical precision, and an extraction plan that doesn't involve cutting through hulls and jumping into space. Acceptable, Vader agreed. And one more condition, Crichton added, his voice hard. Once you're through that dimensional fracture, we collapse it behind you. Completely. No bridge between universes, no way for your empire to follow, no access route in either direction. You go home, the door closes forever. Vader considered this. Permanent separation from this universe meant no return, no exploitation of its resources, no future access to technologies here. But it also meant home. The Emperor. The Empire. Everything he'd been fighting to regain. Agreed, Vader said. On one condition of my own. You provide me with complete technical data on the dimensional fracture collapse. The Emperor will want to understand the principles involved. So he can prevent it from happening if someone tries to open another rift, Crichton said flatly. You really don't give up, do you? I serve my master's interests absolutely, Vader confirmed. That will never change. Crichton shook his head, but didn't argue further. Fine. You get the technical data. We get you gone. Everyone wins. Except Scorpius. Pilot, Aaron called out. What's the Relentless' last known position? Updating data from Genevian's intelligence networks now. Pilot responded. After a moment. The Relentless is currently en route to the Tarsus Nebula. ETA to that location. 6 solar days. Purpose unknown, but speculation suggests Scorpius is investigating the natural wormhole phenomenon we discussed earlier. He's searching for the same thing we are, Crichton realized. Dimensional access points. Alternative routes to exploit wormhole physics. He knows we escaped with Aurora Station data, and he's trying to stay ahead of us. Then we beat him there, Vader stated. Moya's starburst capability allows faster travel than conventional drives. We reach Tarsus Nebula first, prepare our assault, and seize the Relentless when it arrives. That's still not a plan, Dargo objected. That's a concept. We need details. Insertion method, target identification, extraction timing, contingencies for when everything goes wrong. Then we plan, Vader said simply. For the next solar day, the unlikely alliance worked with grim efficiency. Aaron mapped assault vectors using Peacekeeper tactical databases. Crichton calculated wormhole stabilization requirements and dimensional signature matching. Dargo prepared weapons and combat scenarios. Even Pilot contributed, analyzing Relentless known specifications to identify vulnerabilities. Vader meditated, drawing what strength he could from the Force's weakened presence, preparing himself for what might be his final battle in this universe. The Tarsus Nebula was beautiful and deadly, churning gases glowing with radiation, spatial anomalies that made navigation treacherous, and, at its heart, the dimensional fracture. Through Moya's viewport, Vader could see it, a tear in space itself, edges shimmering with impossible colors, depth suggesting infinite distance, compressed into zero space. The fracture is currently stable, Pilot reported. But readings suggest it will collapse within 20 arns and won't reopen for approximately 40 solar days. Then we have one chance, Vader stated. Relentless has entered the nebula, Aaron announced, monitoring sensor data. They're approaching the fracture from Vector 7-3. Scorpius is aboard. I'm detecting his biosignature. Positions, Vader commanded, and the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The assault plan was audacious. Moya would drift on minimal power, disguised among the nebula's radiation as just another spatial anomaly. When Relentless passed close enough, Vader and Crichton would use the transport pod to breach the carrier's hull, fighting their way to the wormhole research labs. Aaron and Dargo would provide tactical support and covering fire, creating chaos to mask the primary objective. 20 minutes to insertion. 15. 10. In the transport pod, Vader and Crichton sat in silence. Finally, the human spoke. "For what it's worth, I hope you make it home." "Your sentiment is noted," Vader replied. "I also hope," Crichton continued, "that once you're back in your universe, you think about what you saw here. This crew, we're fugitives, criminals by peacekeeper law, but we're trying to survive, trying to stay free. That has to mean something, even to an Empire enforcer." "It means you are effective survivors," Vader acknowledged. "Nothing more." "Yeah," Crichton said quietly. "I was afraid you'd say that." The Relentless loomed ahead, massive and bristling with weapons. Vader felt the force surge within him, still weak, still limited, but present. "Enough for what must be done." 2 micros to insertion, pilot announced. Vader ignited his lightsaber, crimson light filling the pod's interior. One way or another, this ended today. The transport pod's hull-cutting charges detonated with precision, blowing a breach into the Relentless lower engineering deck. Alarms shrieked as atmosphere rushed out, emergency bulkheads slamming down to contain the damage. Vader was through the opening before the peacekeepers could react, lightsaber carving through soldiers who'd never encountered such a weapon. Crichton followed, pulse rifle acquired from Aurora Station, firing in controlled bursts. The ancient knowledge guided his movements now, tactical positioning, threat assessment, optimal firing solutions appearing in his mind like ghostly overlays on reality. They fought through 3 decks, leaving unconscious or dead peacekeepers in their wake. Vader showed no mercy to those who resisted, but neither did he kill unnecessarily. Every moment wasted on combat was a moment closer to the dimensional fracture's collapse. The Wormhole Research Laboratory was exactly where Genevian's intelligence had indicated, deep in the Relentless core, behind security doors that Vader's lightsaber rendered meaningless. Inside, containment fields held stable wormholes, their shimmering surfaces showing glimpses of distant space. And standing before the primary console was Scorpius. "Punctual," the half-Scaran observed, not turning around. "I calculated 73% probability you'd attempt this assault. The remaining 27% involved you fleeing this universe through uncontrolled dimensional collapse and likely death." "Your calculations were incomplete," Vader stated, advancing into the laboratory. "Stand aside. I'm taking the equipment I need." "Are you?" Scorpius finally turned, his expression carrying something close to amusement. "You've won the tactical engagement, Lord Vader. My ship is breached, my soldiers defeated, my research laboratory compromised. But you've forgotten something crucial." "Explain quickly," Vader commanded, "before I lose patience." Scorpius gestured to the containment fields. "These wormholes are artificially sustained through power systems integrated into the Relentless reactor core. Sever them from the ship, they collapse. Transport them, they destabilize. You cannot take this equipment anywhere. It functions here or not at all." Vader felt the truth of this through the Force. The wormhole's stability depended on infrastructure that couldn't be easily relocated. The dimensional fracture would collapse in less than 18 arns. There wasn't time to relocate equipment. "Then I use them here," Vader stated. "Crichton, begin calculations for dimensional signature matching." Crichton moved to the console, fingers flying across alien interfaces as ancient knowledge flooded through him. "I need the quantum signature of your home universe. Some unique identifier that differentiates it from other realities." Vader reached into his armor's data storage, extracting files from his TIE Advanced Navigation computer, hyperspace coordinates, stellar cartography, the unique subspace harmonic of his galaxy. Will this suffice? Maybe. The math is. Crichton trailed off, lost in equations. "I need to modify the wormhole containment field, use it to amplify the dimensional fracture's resonance, create a targeting beacon that..." He stopped, eyes widening. "Oh no." "What?" Vader demanded. "The energy requirements." to stabilize the fracture long enough for transit, and then collapse it permanently behind you. Crichton looked up, his face pale. We'd need to overload the relentless entire reactor core. The feedback would destroy the ship. Acceptable, Vader said, without hesitation. We're still aboard this ship. Crichton protested. Then we complete the procedure quickly. Vader turned to Scorpius. You will evacuate your crew. Order them to abandon ship immediately. Scorpius laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. You think I'd sacrifice the relentless just to send you home? This vessel represents cycles of research, billions in credits, the pinnacle of peacekeeper wormhole technology. You will sacrifice it, Vader stated, or I will kill you and give the evacuation order myself. The half-Scaran's eyes narrowed. You're not a murderer of convenience, Lord Vader. I've studied your pattern of behavior through intelligence reports. You kill when necessary, intimidate when possible, but you're not a senseless killer. You won't execute me just to access ship communications. Vader's lightsaber hummed between them. You presume to know me based on incomplete data. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. I have killed Jedi Masters, crushed rebel insurgencies, enforced the Emperor's will across 1,000 star systems. Your life means nothing measured against my return to his service. Then kill me, Scorpius challenged. But know that my death triggers fail-safes. The wormhole containment fields will collapse immediately. The resulting spatial backlash will tear this section of the ship apart. You, Crichton, and everyone aboard dies, including your only path home. Stalemate. Vader could sense truth in Scorpius's words. The half-Scaran had prepared for exactly this scenario, building deadman switches into systems he controlled. What do you want? Vader asked, the question bitter as ash. The same thing I've always wanted. John Crichton's ancient knowledge. Voluntarily shared, completely transferred, with no mental degradation. Scorpius smiled. Give me that, and I'll evacuate my crew, and let you destroy my ship to get home. Crichton's hands froze on the console. No, absolutely not. You get that knowledge, you build wormhole weapons, you destabilize this entire region of space. And if you refuse, Scorpius countered, Lord Vader remains trapped here, the dimensional fracture collapses unused, and we all continue this dance until someone makes a fatal mistake. Vader calculated rapidly. Scorpius was correct. The knowledge exchange was the only solution that achieved all objectives. But giving this being wormhole weapon capabilities, the Emperor would never approve. But the Emperor wasn't here. Crichton, Vader said quietly. How long would knowledge transfer require? With Scorpius's neural interface technology? Maybe 10 micros. But Vader, you can't seriously be considering. I am considering returning to my master, Vader interrupted. Everything else is secondary. If arming Scorpius achieves that goal, then it will be done. Even if it means thousands of deaths, planets destroyed. Crichton's voice was anguished. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're so focused on getting home that you don't care what happens here. I care about the Empire, Vader stated. This universe is not my concern. Scorpius watched the exchange with evident satisfaction. How refreshing to meet someone who shares my pragmatic philosophy. Very well, Lord Vader. We have an accord. Crichton surrenders his knowledge. I evacuate the relentless. You return home. Everyone achieves their objectives. Except the people who die from your weapons, Crichton said bitterly. Acceptable losses, Scorpius replied. The knowledge transfer took 9 micros and 17 seconds. Scorpius's neural interface, more sophisticated than anything at Aurora Station, extracted ancient equations directly from Crichton's brain while the human screamed. Vader watched him passively, calculating the time remaining until dimensional fracture collapse. 14 arns. When the transfer completed, Crichton collapsed, gasping. Scorpius's expression shifted to something approaching ecstasy as wormhole mathematics flooded his consciousness. Magnificent, he whispered. Absolutely magnificent. The ancients understood everything. Space, time, reality itself mapped in elegant equations. You have what you wanted, Vader stated. Now evacuate your crew. Scorpius activated ship-wide communications with visible reluctance. All personnel, this is command. Abandon ship immediately. This is not a drill. Proceed to escape pods and evacuate to minimum safe distance. You have 15 micros. Throughout the Relentless, peacekeepers responded with disciplined efficiency. Years of training overriding confusion and questions. Escape pods began launching, carrying crew away from the doomed vessel. Vader turned to Crichton. "Can you complete the dimensional stabilization procedure?" The human nodded weakly. "Yeah, just give me a minute." "You have 6, Vader stated, monitoring the countdown. Aaron's voice crackled through Vader's comm. "We're clear of the Relentless. Dargo and I are aboard Moya, positioned at safe distance. What's your status?" "Preparing for dimensional transit," Vader replied. "Stand by for final reactor overload." Crichton's fingers moved across the console, ancient knowledge guiding modifications to the wormhole containment system. The fields expanded, resonating with the distant dimensional fracture, creating a cascading harmonic that bridged the gap between Scorpius's laboratory and the tear in reality itself. "I'm creating a targeting corridor," Crichton explained, his voice hoarse. "The wormhole will align with the fracture, and I'm programming it to search for your universe's quantum signature. When it locks on, you'll have maybe 60 seconds to transit before the reactor goes critical." "Understood," Vader said. Scorpius had already departed, taking his stolen knowledge and fleeing to his private escape craft. Vader could have stopped him, could have killed the half-Scaran and prevented the wormhole weapon threat. But that would risk the dimensional transit. And nothing mattered more than returning to the Emperor. "Alignment complete," Crichton announced. "Quantum signature match found. It's your galaxy, Vader. The corridor is open." Through the laboratory viewport, Vader could see it. The dimensional fracture transformed into a stable tunnel, its depths showing a familiar star pattern. Coruscant sector. Home. "The reactor will overload in 90 seconds, Crichton warned. "You need to go now." Vader moved toward the opening, then paused. He turned back to face Crichton. "You opposed me at every turn," Vader observed. "Yet you're helping me return." "Because I want you gone," Crichton replied bluntly. "And because I understand what it's like to be trapped far from home. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Not even you." Vader inclined his head fractionally, the closest he could come to gratitude. "Your crew will survive. Scorpius will become this universe's problem, and the dimensional bridge will collapse permanently." "I know," Crichton said. "Go. Before I change my mind." Darth Vader stepped into the dimensional corridor. Reality twisted around him, the Force suddenly surging as his connection to his home galaxy reasserted itself, the vast cosmic web flooding back, power returning like breath to suffocating lungs. Behind him, the relentless reactor achieved critical mass. The explosion was contained, channeled, transformed into the energy needed to collapse the dimensional fracture completely and permanently. The bridge between universes sealed. Forever. And Darth Vader emerged in familiar space. Sensors showing the Executor's massive bulk nearby, TIE patrols, star destroyers, the glorious strength of the Empire. He activated his comm, Lord Vader to Executor. "Prepare for retrieval. I am returning to Fleet Command." The response came immediately, crisp and military. "Acknowledged, Lord Vader. Welcome back." The Dark Lord stood in the void between stars, his empire, his emperor, and allowed himself one moment of satisfaction before duty reasserted itself. He had returned, and he had much to report. In another universe, aboard a living ship fleeing the wreckage of the Relentless, John Crichton watched the dimensional fracture's final collapse and whispered a quiet prayer that he'd made the right choice. Somewhere in that same universe, Scorpius studied stolen ancient knowledge and smiled, already planning weapons that would reshape the balance of power. And across the infinite barrier between realities, two universes remained forever separate, each changed by their brief collision, each carrying forward the consequences of impossible choices. If you enjoyed this epic crossover between Darth Vader and the Farscape universe, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop your dream crossover ideas in the comment below. Which character would you want to see torn from their universe and thrown into another? Your suggestions fuel our next amazing stories. Until next time, ***.